everybody, it is Julie. Welcome back to Pages and Pens. I look familiar. Well, yeah, of course I look familiar. Jeez. But this looks familiar because I've been binge filming now that I'm back from vacation. So no shame, guys. You guys know I film when I can and I don't mind being in the same clothes for multiple videos, especially ones that are going to go up right in a row. But this is going to be books that took me a while to get into, but I ended up loving. So these are all books that I really love that I really struggled to get into at first. And I'm making this video to try to encourage you to stick with books. Sometimes it takes a little while to get into it before you really start to love a book and love a series and get immersed into the world. So these are just a couple of books. Of course, there's others. The Raven Cycle took me a really long time to get into. The Lunar Chronicles took me a really long time to get into. Those I'm not talking about. I'm talking about some other ones. Those are just some examples that I threw off the top of my head there. But let me grab my stack of books. First up is a recent read, and this is one that I ended up really loving, but it took me a while to get into it. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. This is a gorgeously written book, and I really do enjoy the premise, but the second half of this book really picks up. And the first half is fine, but of course it's world building and not like info dumpy necessarily, but it takes you a while to kind of really understand what's happening in this series. And once you do, it's amazing. Like the second half is far better than the first half. If you haven't read this yet, I think that this is one that could seem really intimidating at the beginning, but it does pick up at the end. So if you haven't tried this yet, or you tried it and you put it down, maybe give it another try. Obviously not everything's going to be for you, but I think this is one that really does pick up on the second half once you understand the character and the world and what's happening a little bit more and you're introduced to a character. So dreamy. Stick with this one. Next up is another one that it's a short book, but it took me a little while to get into it, and it's not one that I have. It was a library book and I haven't purchased it yet, and that was Goodbye Days by Jeff Settner. I loved The Serpent King, but honestly, The Serpent King kind of falls into this one as well. So Jeff Settner's writing in general is phenomenal. It's gorgeous. I absolutely love his work. The Serpent King and Goodbye Days took me a little while to get invested in the story and in the character, but once you're in, man, are you in, and like emotionally invested, and all of the feels and tears. Like I bawl at his writing. If you've picked up his books and you really weren't sure, you read the premise of the stories and you were just kind of meh about them, give it a try, stick with them, get like 150 pages in, and you're gonna be sold. I promise you. The same can be said for Adam Silvera. Adam Silvera in More Happy Than Not and in History Is All You Left Me, I think it takes a little while for you to understand where the characters are coming from. It takes a while for you to kind of get names right. Adam treats his readers really respectfully in terms of like not talking down to them or dumbing down his writing. He jumps in like you should have grown up with these characters the same way that these characters grew up with each other. And that can be hard at first to get names right and relationships right and see where everybody kind of fits in. But once you get it, the story really does pick up and you do become invested in it. In specifically More Happy Than Not. It takes a while for you to understand where the story is going and like what's actually happening, but once you kind of get that twist, then you're in. With this one, it was just a matter of getting to know the characters a little bit, and because this jumps from present tense to history, like present time to history, it takes a little while for the backstory to catch up to the current so that you can become invested in the story. But it is a really cool way of telling the story, and eventually you're all in. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgkins Burnett. And this one I think you have to stay with a little bit because the character's really unlikable. Mary as a little girl is spoiled and stubborn and just, she's not a good kid. She's not even portrayed as a cute kid. So it takes a little while to really care what's going on with her. She's definitely had a rough time of things. She gets sent away to live with an uncle, and the uncle's never around. She's being taken care of by staff. She's spoiled and just cranky and miserable, and she's not thriving. She won't eat. She's just kind of like bleh. So it takes a little while to actually care about what's happening to her. If you stick with her, I promise this is a really cute story and one of my favorite classics, one of my favorite children's books. Give her a chance. I promise this gets so much better. I absolutely love Illuminae and Gemina. I love the Illuminae Files series so far. However, it takes a little while to get into this book. I would say a solid 200 pages. Now, mind you, that's 200 pages of mixed media. It's not full pages. So very rarely do you get full pages of text. So it goes quicker than you think it would. This book in particular, I think takes the longest to get into. Guys, there's like little to nothing more annoying than when my camera says it's time to cool down. This particular camera, which all my equipment is always listed down below, it overheats every time I film it, which when I binge film at least, which is almost always, so it's annoying. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Because this is a sci-fi in space, which is like not my thing, it took me a little bit longer to get into it. Also, because this was my first experience with like true mixed media, it took a little while to get used to the storytelling and how you were being passed information. And it just took a little while to understand what was happening and get invested in the characters and in the storyline. So I would say give this a solid 200 pages, and then after that you're hooked. And it made Gemina a lot more enjoyable for me. I think this was a 4-star read because it took me about 200 pages to get into it, and then Gemina was a 5-star read mainly because I already understood how things were going to be passed to me, so it was easier for me to get into it and stay invested and get involved in the storyline. Even though I think I like the story of this one better than the story of Gemina, because they are companion novels. If you haven't tried this yet, for whatever reason, just know that going into it, it's okay, it's going to take a little while, but it's so worth it. It's really, really good. We're gonna go with a series that I gave up on. Now, mind you, I have read everything that is published in this particular series by this particular author, but I don't think I'm gonna continue when the next book publishes, if the next book publishes. And that is The Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. This is the Feast of Crows, and I have Dance of Dragons. The rest are all in storage, and of course, so are my, like, slips for this, the dust jackets for this. The thing with George R.R. Martin is that the first book, not necessarily that hard to get into. When you get into these particular books in general, Feast of Crows and Dance with Dragons, it's split. Like, this covers what's happening at one particular time in a couple different places, and then Dance with Dragons happens at the same time as this book, but to other characters. These two books were impossible for me to get through. I wanted to know what was happening to all of the characters in one book, succinctly in one book, and not have to split it up into 2 separate books to get the same amount of like time. Now, I understand his books are really rich and huge and widely spread across a giant world that he's created. I'm glad I read them. This is a series that I think is daunting. It takes a little bit of time to really get into it, even in the beginning when you're really invested in the action and what's going on. And then if you stick with it, just because you already love the series doesn't mean that these particular books, A Feast of Crows and Dance with Dragons, will not be hard for you. So if you've read up to this far and you are continuing, know that you may hit a stopping point with these. And then the last series that I'm so glad I stuck with is the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. Specifically, The Final Empire took a while to get into. There's extreme world building, magic system building, character introductions. It took a long time for me to get everything straight in my head, but once you have it, you're good. Now, this is a huge book, over 600 pages for this particular book, and I would say a solid 250 at least it took me to understand the world, understand the characters, understand at least a little bit of the magic system. You do continue to learn about all of that throughout the rest of the series. So he's really good about not info dumping, but it still takes a while to understand and get invested in what's taking place, understand the characters, how the characters are connected to one another, because it's such a rich world. But once you get into it, you're in it, like you're hooked. And I absolutely loved it. Some of my new favorite characters are in this series. I cried, I laughed, like it was amazing. It really was, but it takes a little while. So if you have picked this up and you're like, nah, I don't get it, give it like 350 pages, like give it a solid try. I think you're gonna start to get it before 350, but I think by 350 you're hooked. I know that's a lot to ask. That's like an entire book worth for other authors, but the series as a whole is worth it, so stick with it. So those have been my series / books that took me a little while to get into, but I'm really glad I stuck with. There's plenty of other ones that I stuck with and then realized at the end I wish I hadn't. On the off chance that you end up loving something, I think it's worth sticking it out as long as you possibly can. And in these particular situations, with these particular books, I'm really glad that I stuck with it. So if I can encourage you to pick these up again, or to stick with these particular books, or to, if you haven't read them yet, to really give them a chance and know going into it, it might take you a little while to get invested, then that was the point of this video. So I hope you have enjoyed it. Let me know down below what book took you a little while to get invested in, but once you were invested, you were all in. I'm dying to know. That's it for this video. So if you like this video, give me a big old thumbs up, click subscribe, and I will see all of you in my next video. Bye guys.